Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. It's a nice, warm night. Glad to be here. We have something very special tonight, something we haven't done before. In previous years, we've held full-blown forums. We might yet do that later on in the year. But as we come up to the primaries this year, there were some voices that we thought you would benefit from hearing from. And we gave you a little voting straw poll sheet so that you could give your feedback on the night. There are going to be 15-minute candidate speeches from mostly faces that you know, but they'll introduce themselves, and you'll have the opportunity to give them direct feedback. There won't be a QA after each speech. We'll wait till the end of the night, and as it's broken up, then you can gang up on whichever one of these politicians you want to, and ask them all the questions you want to, until all the little bakery goods that Lupita brought are gone, right? There's water in the back as well, but without further ado, thank you again for being here, and I would like to take the privilege, if I might, of introducing a personal friend of mine, an incumbent living out of Gig Harbor, and he has a tough race coming up, so please welcome Jesse Young. Woo!
All right, well, thank you for having me. I want to thank you for coming. Can I get a quick show of hands? I want to understand the crowd. How many here are from the 26th legislative district? Okay, how about the 23rd? Oh man, well don't worry, I'll be your legislator by proxy. And how about the 35th? Okay. And one more question. How many of you are on Facebook or have the ability to log into Facebook? Okay. Well, I guess I got one more. How many of you need an introduction? How many of you know a little bit about me or don't? How many people don't know about my background and I should do a quick introduction? Okay, all right, so I was appointed in 2014. How many of you remember back when I was appointed in 2014, they said that a conservative like me could never hold the seat? Anybody remember that? And here I am. In 2014, a number of you who were PCOs, dared to believe that a conservative could hold a Puget Sound district, a Tea Party conservative, someone who is unabashedly a supporter of the Constitution and personal and individual liberty. And in spite of the fact that the party did not want me, you still put me into this seat. And I believe, is anyone in this room that knows my history, anybody think I've never stood up for liberty? We've proven that it can work. And so I'm happy to come before you because really our efforts together have shown that what Western Washington wants is someone that will tell them the truth. They want somebody that will be candid and support the Constitution and then roll up their sleeves and work hard. And if they do, they can occupy a space that the political elite will tell you is too far on the right of the conservative spectrum, and they can still hold the seat. So here I am 2 years later, or 2 terms later, so I've gone through 3 tours now in Olympia, standing up for your individual liberties and showing that, guess what? People that come to meetings like this are not extreme. They're not unreasonable. They're actually the very most articulate and reasonable people out there, and it's time for the political elite to start to acknowledge that you just want your individual liberties preserved and want some performance out of the people that represent you. And that's not unreasonable, I don't think. So, as a political background, you now have a little bit of background about me. I'm a married man, father of 5, been married just last month, 20 years now, to my high school sweetheart. I grew up homeless in Tacoma. By the way, this whole new movement that you hear about walk away, well, technically I was one of the founders of that. Did anybody in here know that I voted for Gore over Bush? I got out of, keep in mind that I grew up as a product of the public education system in a very urban, very democratic district. And I was taught that the reason I was poor was because Ronald Reagan gave all the rich my money. Okay, and so I come out of that. Now I graduated valedictorian in my class, Washington State Scholar, go back to University of Notre Dame, come out from the #1 business school in the country, which happened to be, and still is, the #1 business college in the country. which I like to know because Donald Trump's always talking about he went to the Wharton School of Business. Well, the Mendoza School of Business is #1. Wharton's only #4. Now, I tell you that to only tell you this. So I got a degree in business, but I wanted to get a double major in economics from the Department of Economics, which was in the College of Liberal Arts at the University of Notre Dame. And that was my first introduction that maybe the liberal left that I was a part of didn't really support me, because go figure, I had the credits. I had a professor sponsor me into the other college, knowing that I guess I was kind of a geek. I had taken a lot of early electives in economics. So Professor Wolfson used to work in the Treasury Department for President Carter. He was a tenured professor there, wanted me, he looked at my transcripts and said, you know what, you can get a double major, you still have time. And so we were going to go, and he was going to sponsor me into the Department of Economics so that I could pursue my double major. And do you know what stopped me from doing that? The very fact that the professors in the College of Liberal Arts said that because I had taken my base level economics courses in the College of Business, which was conservative and taught Austrian economics, they would not accept transfer of my credits from a conservative college within the same university. And that was my first kind of eye-opening experience. Now, I can fast forward. I get out of college. I never complain. I'll sometimes post, if you see my posts, about people doing stupid stuff with my signs, but I don't really complain a lot because really it's kind of my penance, because I ripped down a lot of Bush Cheney signs. I wasn't part of the Democrat Party, but I was one of these liberal kids that came out thinking that people like you were the bad people, because I had been believed, I drank the Kool-Aid. And then all of a sudden, a number of things happened to me in between Bush the first time against against Gore, where I voted for Gore, and then I voted for Bush over Kerry. During that time, we started trying to build my family. I started trying to start my own business. I got baptized in the Holy Spirit. And now I sit before you, one of the staunchest conservatives in the state. And the reason why is because I know what the other side is all about. And I got lied to for a good portion of my early youth, and it really ticks me off. So now, I stand for individual liberty. And you know what the other eye-opening thing is? How many of you want to guess how many of my friends that I grew up poor with are still sitting in Tacoma living on welfare? Over 90% of them. And it just drives me nuts to think that all the liberal policies that I was brought up on that said that they're for the poor have failed all my friends and family. And it drives me nuts. Now, so I'm probably about 7 minutes into my speech. Let me tell you what I've done and what we're standing for in Olympia real quick. Since I've been in, we have not raised taxes. And go figure, every year the Democrats try to push it up, and every year we beat them back on the floor because we've had the Senate. But we no longer have the Senate right now. We're effectively one vote down in both the House and in the Senate. And we need to pick up one seat, which means it's crucial that we keep our conservatives in the seats that we have, and we also keep conservatives in the seats that will stay with the Republican Party and not jettison over. That's very important. Number one, and we now need to pick up another seat. Now, if we do that, then we will have control of one of the gavels and we will stop taxes again. If we don't, it will be a race between the governor and the Speaker of the House to see which comes out first. A capital gains income tax, a straight income tax, or a carbon tax, your choice. But if we don't take back one of the bodies, that's what is going to happen in January next year. Mark my words, it's a race. The Speaker of the House wants the the Speaker of the House wants the capital gains income tax. But a number of leftists in there are saying that if we get control, we might as well just rip the Band-Aid off and go straight income tax. Why keep fighting? And you got a lot of progressives coming out of Seattle now, down in Olympia, saying that that's what they want to do. Now the governor, of course, he wants the carbon tax. Why? Because he wants to stamp his ticket to run for president in a couple of years. So that's what we're fighting back for you. If you want to stand up for conservative principles, if you want to stand up for the Constitution and individual liberty, you have to realize that people like me dramatically depend upon people like you. Because the number one avenue of attack, whether it's the leftists trying to dismiss the Tea Party, or trying to dismiss anybody that stands for individual liberty, or whether it's more of the middle of the ground, some of the establishment rhino parts, their number one attack against conservatives is to try to say that you're unprofessional, that you're somehow unqualified. Do you think that I'm unqualified to represent you? But they want to make that case. Why? Because we have logic on our side. Look, we have proven in this state since 2014, we have proven the conservative mantra on taxes. We did not raise taxes, and what happened? We grew our revenue. Why? Because the economy grew and rewarded us for our discipline. And as a result, more jobs have been created, more businesses have grown, and they have produced more revenue. And so the governor has had more money to spend. But we didn't have to take it out of your pockets, that's the key. That's not an unreasonable standpoint. But they don't want to have that debate. So they tried to dismiss conservatives like me at the get-go. Now, how many of you heard about the claims about me that I'm a hostile guy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, let me ask you something. Don't you think that there are a couple snowflakes out there right now that saw this video would think that I'm hostile? They probably would. Now, let me ask you something. When I go down and represent you, and I stand before a committee that's running Big Bertha, and can't give us a straight answer about where their money's going and why they're failing, and then I use the word farce on camera and say, I don't appreciate your lack of transparency, I believe it's a farce, and then I get gaveled, do you think that they thought I was hostile or not? See, now, what are they trying to do? They're trying to dismiss me because I've become one of the most articulate advocates on the floor of the House. Nobody wants to debate me on that floor. Nobody does. I'll tell you who doesn't. Her opponent. Sherry Appleton is probably one of the least qualified representatives we have down there. Bar none. Bar none. Against the bureaucracy for you. The bureaucracy pushes back and says, well, he's rude. No, I'm not rude. I'm standing up for your rights. I got asked to apologize to staff because I one time dared on the floor of the House to point out that staff briefed a bill incorrectly. And it was like, oh my gosh, I opened the gates of hell, or Pandora's box. Jesse, you can't say that. Well, it was true. Now, if you don't know, it's impossible for every legislator to read every bill. It's impossible. We have 20 plus committees. I serve on a heavy load and serve on 4 of them. So during the first couple months or first couple weeks of session, they pile up over 1,000 bills onto the floor. Most of them, 5 minutes? Yeah. Most of them coming back, or most of them coming out of committees I haven't seen. Then the speaker won't tell us what bills we have to run, so we'll get onto the floor on a given day on 10 o'clock, and by 11:15, he'll submit a list before us and say, here are 30 bills that we're going to run, and we're going to run them in half an hour. Of those 30 bills that are run, I've maybe seen 2 of them that have come through my committees. Do the math. That average, that gives us 2 minutes per bill to brief it. And these bills are all hundreds of pages long, some of them may be shorter. But that's the gambit that they run down there, so we rely a lot upon other representatives to either brief us, and so you have to find people that you trust that have maybe been on the committee that had time to look at the bill. And I do the same for my friends. If you ask me about a bill that's come through my committee, I can tell you what's happened with it. I've read it. However, we're relying upon them or relying upon staff, and there's an unbroken code down there. Staff is supposed to be transparent, they're supposed to be nonpartisan. And so I had the audacity to say to the world on public TV that they didn't brief the bill correctly. It doesn't do what they said it did. And all of a sudden, Jesse, you got to apologize. Well, you want to know another time? I don't apologize for this one. And you can see this on TVW. How many of you know that the reason you don't pay ST3 card tab fees on this side of the Puget Sound is because I stopped their attempt in 2015? Now you say to me, wait a second, didn't they? I don't think that the initiative for ST3 passed until 2016. Well, you're right, it didn't. But they had ST1 and they had ST2. And in 2015, a representative from Thurston County, Representative Hunt, brought a bill before us, and staff and he briefed the bill saying this would only allow ST3 to expand into Olympia and parts of Thurston County so that they can have a say in how the regional transit system will grow in the future. Except you can see me on camera actually reading the bill, doing my job. And that's not what the bill said. The bill said it could go to any county. In fact, they were going to expand it to every county west of the Cascades. And so I raised my hand and started asking questions. And all of a sudden, the sponsor of the bill can't even answer articulate questions about his bill, which in this one case was only like 2 or 3 pages long. Well, I'm pretty sure it only applies to Thurston. Well, no, it says it can apply to any county. Well, okay, real simple question. Would you be willing to work with me? I'll sponsor an amendment on your bill to apply it only to Thurston. Well, okay, sure. Okay, then a couple other members start looking into this and they start raising their hands and all of a sudden they're asking questions that they don't want to answer and that they didn't want on camera. This is all on TVW. And then finally, I raised my hand one more time, asked another pertinent question about the mechanics for how they would spread it. And all of a sudden, the chair speaks up, kind of laughs off, and says, look what kind of can of worms you opened up. We're just going to close this bill down right now. And then it never came up again. And that's why you don't pay car tax, because what they were trying to do was preemptively extend the taxing authority of Sound Transit before they came out with their initiative, so that they'd already had you in the hopper, and they'd already be able to tax you. Now, when I do stuff like that, they say that I'm hostile. Do you think that that's hostile, or do you think that's diligence? Okay, so they come out and they attack me. I've got, what, 2 minutes left probably? Okay, well, I need your help. I'll stay for Q&A, but this is what I need. You're all on Facebook? They're attacking me. The first ethics claim that they said that I had was they said I sold my boat, they said I was hostile to staff, and they said that I forced my staff to work on the campaign time. But did you ever see in the paper that I was vindicated of those very things in October of last year? Did anybody see that in the paper? No. This Mueller investigation that they're doing in Trump, they threw me through one in January, at the end of January, early February of 2017, after the claims came out against me. And they did an independent investigation with a Democrat-sponsored ethics board, with the lawyer, the chief lawyer being the former Democratic counsel. And over 10 months, spent thousands of dollars subpoenaed every phone, text, phone email, or phone voicemail, all my emails. And after 10 months, came back and found absolutely nothing. But they won't tell you that. And I've got a primary challenger that claims to be a conservative that keeps putting out there that I don't have staff. I still have staff. I have my public information officer, I have all my committee staff. But I will not sign a document that will give me back my legislative aid under the threat or the blackmail of saying that I have an anger management problem when I don't have it. I stood up for you. And I was vindicated. Now the House is in a tricky position. Because an ethics board came back 10 months later and said, yeah, there's no proof of him ever yelling at staff. So now I have the question to the House, why'd you take him away? I'll tell you why they took him away, because they want to discredit the voice that stands up for you. Because they don't want to have the argument. Now, the second thing that just happened, I'm probably going over 1 minute, I'm sorry, Johnny. But the second thing that just happened was in February, I did 4 town hall meetings. Town hall meetings are meant to be legislative updates. I spent 10 hours. I challenge you to find another representative or senator that ever has stood up before the people and answered as much direct Q&A as I have. You won't find it because I have set the record in the state. Since I've been appointed, I kept my promise to be accountable to you. And so on that day, on February 22nd, I stood there for 10 hours at 4 different locations in my district. And my primary challenger saw that my mom, who's sitting in the back, who was serving at the welcome table, mistakenly put a campaign flyer from 2016 on the table, snapped a picture, sent it to the Democrat Ethics Board, and they fined me $2,000. That's what I got fined. Well, that's not all I got fined for. Now, hold on a second. Did you know that nice Christine Cowan is a Democrat, or is a campaign operative of mine? Okay, now, if you've ever been to one of my town hall meetings, I opened them exactly the way that we open legislative session on the floor of the House. That is, we have an invocation, and then every day, and then we say the Pledge of Allegiance, just like we did here. Except that when I do them at my town hall meetings, what I have is I have a local veteran come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Anything wrong with that? I find a local community pastor and ask them if they would like to come up and lead us in an invocation. My only requirement is that they have to pray in the name of Jesus, because I'm a Christian, and I'm not scared to represent Christians neither. But that said, and then I asked one other community leader, like a former head of the Chamber of Commerce in Port Orchard, I asked them to come MC it, the event. And what they said was, okay, well, your mom put a campaign flyer. It doesn't matter that it was mistaken, Jesse. She put a campaign flyer on it. It doesn't matter that it wasn't this year's campaign flyer. It was an old one, and all it did was list the endorsements that I had so people could know what kind of representative I was. That doesn't matter either. It doesn't matter, Jesse, that you have filmed all 10 hours. I offered them all 10 hours and begged them to watch the tape, and they wouldn't even watch the tape. Did you know that? The paper won't write that either. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter any of these things, Jesse. Here's the thing. She had an accident put a flyer there and you had it on your thing. So that's a problem. But now we've looked and we've seen, well, you had campaign staff there. No, I didn't. I didn't have no campaign staff there. I didn't ask for money. I didn't ask for a vote. I didn't ask for anything. Well, yeah, but you see, those MCs that you had come, those are campaign operatives. So for every MC like Christine that came, they jacked up the charge. For every local pastor that came, they charged and dinged me again. For every veteran that came and said the Pledge of Allegiance, that's a campaign staffer, Jesse. Cha-ching, 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 $2,000. and now I've got a dummy opponent out there saying that I have ethics problems. Again, understand what you present. You represent the truth and you stand for individual liberty. The price for people that represent that for you is immense, and they try to character assassinate. So Johnny's going to come and rip this from me. I get that. I wanted to give you that legislative update, but here's what help I need. I need you, with that knowledge, to defend me on Facebook. Every time one of these Seattle acolytes or socialists get on there and try to whip the Democrats into a frenzy, I need you to come on and shut that down. We're a team. If you want me to continue fighting for you, I need your support. Thank you. All right.
Isn't it great? Isn't it gorgeous? Can you imagine seeing it on the floor? Yeah, I think the governor would have a heart attack at these
We might have to make that work. I'll tell you what. After the election's over, maybe I'll have to take a few of my friends down to Olympia when we're not in session, and maybe we'll take a picture on the floor.
That sounds like a good idea. Thank you, Jesse. So I actually had another friend in the 26th district. I know, it's kind of, because Kingston is pretty slim up there. It's kind of like the Sahara Desert for, conservative political friends like in Kingston. And so I have to go all the way to Gig Harbor to find comradeship. But as you know, many of you, I certainly was, surprised when Jan Angel announced that she was going to vacate her seat. And there was a little bit of drama that was going on after that. And rising to the green comes a candidate whose name we are familiar with here, who's run for office before, but we'll let him talk about that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome candidate for the Senate in the 26th, Marty McClendon.
Well, good evening, and thank you for having us out. And as Johnny said, a friend of his and a friend of the Tea Party here. I remember meeting Jesse Young in 2010 when we both ran for office the first time. Getting together with Doug Richards, Jesse and I, and we were praying about, making a difference, about being conservative in this district, about planning for office. Amazing where he's gone since then and what happened with us as well. But at that very first campaign, we were at the Tea Party event in Silverdale at the waterfront. And so we've been there every year. And so some of my closest friends are in this room, which is fantastic. So I want to start here. For those that don't know me, I am Marty McClendon. I am running for your state senate. And I'll talk about the campaign and who I am for those that don't know me. I want to start off, first of all, thank you, Jesse, for sharing again and for what you're going through. I shared the fact that we met in 2010 when we first ran for office together and prayed. I know this man really, really well. I know his family. I love him. I love his family. They're fantastic. But the character, throughout all this stuff, being a conservative, when he ran and actually got appointed, he was the only conservative. Now he's paved the way for another conservative to actually be in office in this district as well. And we're going to win, and we're going to work together in a great way. Yes. Yeah. It's important, though, because you pay your dues. And like Jesse said, we have enemies on the left. And we have enemies that are, you would think would be called friends, but that they call you too conservative. In 2016, I did run for lieutenant governor. You guys were all very supportive here. I thought we had it. I'm sure you thought we had it as well. The polling had us 10 days out, tied. And I'm like, okay, great. Now, of course, they spent almost $1 million on their side, and we spent about $100,000 on our side. So, as you know, that's typically what happens. And then, lo and behold, President Obama was doing robocalls for my opponent in Seattle. And then we fell short. But people were shocked that a conservative could knock out everybody else in the state. I said, if you are who you are, if people can trust you to stand on your values, to stand on your convictions, to keep your word, they'll come out and vote for you. And our job is to make sure that everybody we know that shares these convictions gets out and votes. Because even in this election, it's about turnout. It's getting people to the ballot box, especially here in the primary. Because how well we do in the primary really dictates how well, what kind of support we're going to get in general. And you probably all know that, but I want to remind you up front. Okay, for those that don't know me, I am a small town, Eastern Washington, Christian Eagle Scout. And basically I grew up on a ranch or a farm, or we had to do construction. We moved from Quincy to Wenatchee to Grand Coulee. And so Grand Coulee Dam is a massive town of about 2,000 people, if that, where everybody knew everybody. But it's where I learned those values of hard work, of working early, of having multiple jobs at a time. And my dad had a very few rules, but a few of them were keep your word, right? Respect your elders. If you start something, finish it. That's kind of the sphere and the way I grew up. And my dad always had this thing where he said, I will never ask somebody else to do something I wouldn't do myself. And I'll never let an employee outwork me either. And that mantra has been with me all my life as far as the work ethic. I was the only one from my high school to go to UW. I was going for pre-med. I came over here over the Seattle area. I was, first of all, blown away for those that came from small towns. My very first class was 1,800 students. I was in the last row next to a guy from Omak, another small town over there. And he goes, what do we do? I go, I have no idea. But this is bigger than our entire, like 4 times our size of our high school, all schools put together. Maybe the size of the town. But we adjusted quickly. I say that because I got a job, I was pre-med. I started in healthcare. My very first job in Seattle, besides bagging groceries at Safeway and that kind of stuff, in healthcare was at Swedish Hospital. I was a shave tech. Basically, I shaved men and women from the nipples to the toes before surgery at 5 in the morning. When you're 18 and a half, 19 years old, that's a gross job. It really is. But I learned how to get up and work hard and go to school afterwards. From that, though, as they saw my work ethic, I got into as orderly and then into instruments. And at 19 and a half, I was running a crew of 40 people, all twice my age, hiring, training, staffing, all that kind of stuff, all going to school. And then a job opened up. They created a new position called an anesthesia tech. It was something that had never been around before. They wanted another third person to work under the physician's guidance or his authority, but do more. Cell savers, infusion, level 1 infusers, you name it, loop pumps, and then give anesthesia. I lobbied for 6 months until I got in. I'm pre-med. Why not? They wanted PAs, nurses, or doctors to do it, and I got in. I love it. I love adrenaline. I love a challenge. I ended up being one of 5 in the state at the time that basically went from Darrington to Madigan to do these really intensive cases. I was on call every other night, every other weekend, and going to school, by the way. But I did that for 13 years and loved the adrenaline. But that's kind of the thing. It's like, what's my next challenge? Well, my next challenge was getting married. My beautiful wife, the nurse, I met her at the hospital one night, and then we got married, and we had our son Logan, and lo and behold, there we go, halfway there. Lo and behold, we're both on call every other night, every other weekend. So I said, oh, someone's got to leave, and you make more money than I do, so I'll leave and do real estate. So for the last 19 years, I've been doing real estate. I say that because it's business. In between there, growing up as I did, I've always had more than one job. I've done real estate for 19 years. I've managed all the credentials along this coast for 7 years. I'm now the statewide broker for Redfin for the entire state for about 400 agents. Behind that, though, I did mortgage banking for 4 years. I've owned a couple small businesses where I hired employees and actually did payroll. I've actually helped pastor a church for several years. I've been on the radio for almost 4 years in Seattle. I had a program that went statewide. Many of you guys have heard that before. Those are things in addition to doing real estate and raising a family. So I say all that, and then because all that leads to the background of who I am and why I'm running for office. You all know, if you don't know, I ran before. I ran in 2010 because my family had gone through some tough times with my son. He had leukemia, and then 4 years later, he relapsed after going through it, and we had a bone marrow transplant. It was at 6 months in the hospital, the second time around, at a $6 million bill with insurance paying 80%, and I can't work because I'm watching my son try to get better with my daughter's bone marrow cells, that I realized that the state's screwed up, this nation's screwed up, that we need conservatives to rise up and do something about it. So I entered into the fray for this position in 2010. Ran against Gary Kilmer, didn't know us when I met Jesse and everybody else, and met you guys. We lost, but the bug was there. I realized this is what I've been created to be. Everything I've done in my life is about meeting people, building relationships, solving problems. Everything you do in real estate is getting 2 people or more that want different things come to a table and find a solution and get things to closing. That's what you do in legislature. You work with different people that want different things, try to have a shared vision, and you walk it through the process to get to closing, right, babe? It really is one of those things. So in 2010 I lost, gonna run again. That's when Jan Angel, the special election in 2013. So we all got together and we got behind Jan Angel. And then first seat came up, that's when Jesse got appointed. So, okay, I'm ready to serve. How much time do I have? Good, okay. I'm speeding this up for you, but the idea here has been about service. If I can't serve in office at that point in time, I'm going to serve in the party. So the 26th District Republican Club was formed down south. We merged the Republican Women Club together and led that for 2 years. So we pioneered that with bylaws and so forth. Outside of that, in 2014 came the race, no one was running against Derek Kilmer again. I go, he's beatable. Why won't someone run? Okay, so I ran against Derek Kilmer. And as you guys know, the result of that. But not knowing that the name ID is bigger and bigger. It was because of that race, even though I lost, that the radio station called me and said, we want you to do radio, which broadened my name ID and base across the state. And there's led to the 2016 election. All that catches you up to speed. So when I got the call from Jan and from the Senate at the last moment, I was surprised, but I'm ready. Because I was looking for 2020 and knowing that everything came full circle for a reason. Now's the time. Our district still needs a conservative with a strong voice to work with Jesse Young and across the aisles to get things done for our district. Now, hurry up. This race has been interesting. They're saying it's the #1 race in the state. They're expecting over $1 million to be spent on this race already. We've seen the ads start flying for and against both our candidates already. My opponent is a Seattle centrist, I should say, socialist. Moved back here a year ago. I'll just give you a short synopsis for her. She is a former employee of Planned Parenthood, who's fundraised. She is an LGBTQ activist, and she thinks Bernie Sanders is too conservative. So there's not a tax that she won't like. And so we understand, I'm not the boogeyman, but it really is a very real person that's really, really bad for this district. My background as a businessman, as a family man, as someone who's gone through a personal story as I just talked about, I raised my family in this district. I used to coach t-ball over in Traceton. I've actually been in the Boys and Girls Club at Gig Harbor. My daughters now are in high school. They're a freshman, or no, going to be a sophomore and a junior this year at Gig Harbor. My son's now 21 and working full-time with his girlfriend. So we're in a great place. So this campaign, the knocking on doors, raising money, it's been contentious, but we're going to win this race for the right reasons. The things I've been focused on are 4 things. The one is Jan Angel started a congestion relief project, which means all along 16, trying to find money to get those projects done. It includes Gorst through 16, widening the roads and so forth. I'll work with Jesse to make sure that gets done after that comes out. Number 2, a veterans first approach. Many things, we're talking about homelessness, we're talking about healthcare, all that kind of stuff. In this county, in this district, with as many veterans here and active military, we need to have a veterans first approach when it comes to mental health, when it comes to building health care, when it deals with getting training for new jobs, don't you think? That makes sense. Education. Both Port Orchard and Gig Harbor are having a hard time trying to find ways to finance a new school. I know that it's not about more taxes, because people are tax first. We've seen the head tax come in, Jesse talked about carbon tax, income tax, capital gains tax. That's what will happen, that's the big bad things. For us though, we had $7 billion extra this last budget. There's constitutionally mandated a rainy day fund, $750 million, that they diverted before I got there because they didn't have enough money. Obviously, money is not the issue. More taxes is not the solution. The solution is being more accountable, responsible, and fiscally responsible with the money they have. So my idea here for finding a new way to finance capital improvements for schools is actually have government. Every state agency has a budget. At the end of the year, if they don't spend it, they lose it. How stupid is that, right? So what do? They spend money. So I worked with, talked to Mark Malosha and many others. It's been on the table for a long time. If you work across the aisle and get something passed where it says you cannot lose your budget, it's fixed for the next 2 years, no matter what. However, for every dollar you save through cost savings, innovation, or saving money, or not spending the money you don't have to, a portion of that will go back as a reward to them, but everything else is tied to capital improvements for schools. Then you have Democrats, Republicans, and Independents working for the same reasons. If Democrats know they'll have money for school buildings, if government's more efficient, wow, they're going to change their, then it's not about spending money, it's about saving money, it's about doing it for less. Doesn't that make more sense? Those are the type of ideas I want to bring to the Senate. But to do that, I need your help, just like Yelsey does, just like Randy does. It's about telling your neighbors that every dollar, every vote, every Facebook post matter. Because you know the unions, the public sector unions, the Democrats, all those leftist policies, the George Soros funded ideologies are coming this way, and they're going to try to make it look like conservatives are evil. I will tell you one thing as I close up here. I laugh because I actually had mainstream Republicans say, "You're not really a monster." And then I go, "Oh, is that a compliment?" I go, "That's funny because I was a conservative." But they have this picture that you must be up here preaching or whatever. The very reason we have our vice and that we're bold enough to say that we're Christian is because we love our neighbor. That we want the best. That we're actually willing to work hard to do it. That we're actually working with people we don't agree with to find a solution. That is totally different from the left. The left says, if you don't agree with me, then you're evil, or I don't want to talk to you. This is what we want more of in our Senate and our House. What do you think?
Yes.
Okay. In closing, I'll be here for questions. Like I said, most of you know me. I'm a straight shooter. I'm going to work hard for you. And I've said this before. Since most of you have known me a long time, I've worked really hard for the last 8 years for the opportunity and the honor to be able to serve you. Can you imagine just how hard I'm going to work when you actually elect me this election? All right. Wait and see. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. That's one way to get advertising out for Tea Party t-shirts, right? And you too can have yours right back there in the box, along with the bling table. We got all sorts of cool little gem-looking items back there, as in G-E-M, not J-I-M. They're back there on the table. And something I didn't mention early, you know, the board,
That's probably
you know, we all have favorite colors. And can you imagine how good this would look in your front yard? I mean, just think about that. I mean, this is like Christmas in July. And it advertises a great cause that you are part of. So tonight, and also upcoming at the, have you got who's got a smartphone out there in their pocket or something? If you got one of those, raise your hand. Okay, if you've got one of those and you've raised your hand, open your calendar. Yeah, go to it, open your calendar, because there's not going to be any excuses for you guys. And push on the date, August 10th. Friday evening, 5 o'clock, unless you're volunteering and then you show up early at 4. Right? 5 o'clock, August 10th, Silverdale Waterfront Park, $5 dogs, candidates, awards. It's our annual picnic. And we really would like you to help us make it a big deal this year. All right? 2010 to 2018, we're going to outlast Pelosi, I swear.
Yep.
I promise. We will outlast Pelosi. She's the one who called us AstroTurf. So take a sign on the way out, and if you miss it tonight, you'll be able to get one at the picnic. I want to see one of these in front of our next guest's yard. Because can you imagine that I have, not a close friend because I only met him just recently, but another acquaintance, gonna be friend, from Gig Harbor. What is it with Gig Harbor? It's like politicians are sprouting up there like dandelions or something. And, but he's running for an important race in the district, and is running a primary against Michelle Collier. So it's important that we listen to his message. A conservative voice from Gig Harbor. Please welcome Mr. Randy Boggs. would delete
I've been
points.
standing
that
in here
take
all day with
you
my coat on, and now I'm all sweaty, so it's like, good evening, and thank you for all of you for coming tonight. My name is Randy Moss. I'm running in the 26th District, Position 2. You might know that there's already a Republican in Position 2 in the 26th District, Michelle Collier. So why am I running in the 2nd District? That was a good question I asked myself when I first filed for office this year. I filed for the Pierce County Council. I live in Pierce County. I do a lot of work with the county council and the county itself. And I was looking forward to a $145,000 a year job. So why would I throw that away and come over into the legislative ranks for a $40,000 a year job? And I did it because of ethics, responsibility, and transparency. The county job would have been a piece of cake. This job is not a piece of cake. The legislature is not a piece of cake. Michelle Collier is not a piece of cake. But before we go there, let me tell you who I am and why I'm here. I don't know if any of you know any of my background. I grew up in Seattle area, Kenmore-Bothell area. I graduated from high school, and out of high school, I joined the Army. 1966, Vietnam was going, you might have heard of that war. And I was the guy who wanted to go save America. So I joined and went down to Dothan, Alabama to get flight training school and fixed wing mechanic, because my head said when I got out of the Army, I'm coming back here going to work for Boeing. So I need to get that training. So now I got a job possibility when I come back, if I did come back. That was another question. But so I went to Vietnam or I went to the Army in 66. I went to Vietnam in 68. Spent a year there as a door gunner on a helicopter. Not my job preference, not my choice. I was a mechanic on the helicopter, and we lost our door gunner, and I was the next guy up. And so I spent the rest of the year shooting, picking up bodies, bringing them back to the hospital. I learned a lot in Vietnam. I learned everything I need to know in life from the Army. I think when you all get out of high school, you go out and you try and figure out, okay, now what do I do? Most people go to college, get in with the kids in school, and all get in trouble. I went in the Army, got a drill sergeant's boot up my butt several times, and straightened me out, seriously. When I got out of the Army in 69, I was a staff sergeant. I'd been staff sergeant in 2 years, and the Bronze Star. So everyone figured I was going to stay in, but nope, decided to get out and go back to college. I did for a while, then I got married. Couldn't keep going to college and being married at the same time. So college got laid on the back burner, and I opened up my own business. I became a contractor building houses in the 70s. As you remember, the inflation was going through the roof. Anything that you wanted to buy, you had to buy it today because it was going to cost twice as much tomorrow. And that included houses. I'm building houses faster than I can roll them out, just like the contractors today. So I spent about 10 years building houses, and until the usury ceiling in Washington kicked in, there was no loans available to build houses in Washington, so I opened up a little video store called Captain Video. In 3 years, I had 8 stores across Washington and sold the company and retired. For about a year, when the guy that I sold the business to went bankrupt and had charged up all my credit lines that I didn't know the bank had extended to him. So now I'm destitute again and starting all over. So I joined a real estate office in Gig Harbor, became the first commercial agent they had, and in the first year became the most successful realtor in that office. It was a residential office, and I've been doing that now for 30 years. I'm working with commercial companies like Best Buy, Target, Albertsons. I do all the real estate in Washington State. If they're looking for a new store, I go find a location and get a lease done to get them into that location. So I've been doing that for many years. In early 2000, my wife and I should have told you I'm married. My wife and I were on our 3rd child, and there were no parks in Gig Harbor. This is where my story really starts. So I went to the Parks Department, and I said, "You're the Parks Department, where's our parks?" "Well, what do you mean?" So at the time, we were all using the school play fields as our parks in Gig Harbor. So I made it to, I was appointed or elected the chairman of the Parks Department and said, look, we've been in business for 20 years, we've never built a park, we owe the county $100,000 in election fees, I'm shutting this place down. But before I do that, I want to take a package to this community to see if they will actually step up, pass a bond, and let us build the park. So either we build the park and stay in business, or I'm shutting the place down. I had no right to do that, but I was going to do it anyway. We passed the bond, $6.5 million, the first and only park bond ever passed in the Gig Harbor area. The money from that park bond built the Zamel Homestead Park, a 100-acre, just beautiful park. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. It's gorgeous. Well, I guess I'm supposed to talk louder. And from there, I then developed, I went to Olympia and spent 2 years changing the law in Olympia, which allowed us in Gig Harbor to create our own Metropolitan Park District. And we did that. It was a vote of the people. They created the Park District. And after that, the old Park District, the district that I was the chairman of, I shut that park down, that Park District down. Probably the only person in Washington that ever eliminated a municipal corporation, but I did that. We then took the Parks District and went over and built the Cushman Trail. We got access under the Cushman power line. We built the Cushman Trail, and if you haven't been to Gig Harbor, if you haven't been on that trail, it is a gold mine for the city and for the people who live there. From there, I went to the Narrows Airport. The city of Tacoma owned the airport at the time, and it was going bankrupt. The airport was going bankrupt. So I worked with the city of Tacoma, and the Metropolitan Park District actually purchased the Tacoma Narrows Airport, and in addition to that, the Madrona Golf Course. So we picked up both of those parcels. The airport went to the county, but the Parks Department kept the Metropolitan Park District. I tell you those stories because that's who I am. When I see something that needs to get done, I go do it. I call myself the spark plug in the lawnmower. You know, a lawnmower is really a great tool, but if you take the spark plug out, it's just going to sit there and do nothing. You need somebody in the spark plug in the lawnmower to get things done, and I'm that guy. In the few years that I was doing all of this development stuff in Gig Harbor, I was also running my own company, and actually a second company that I started, and at the same time doing a massive work on the Tacoma Narrows, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. You might have heard about that bridge that they jammed down our throat back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I took the State Department of Transportation to the Supreme Court twice, the state Supreme Court twice, and I'm not an attorney. The first time we got the bridge project changed from a private project to a state project. And why was that important? As a private project, we had no way there was no transparency. We couldn't look at the books. It was a private corporation. By getting it into the state's realm, we had the Public Records Act and the ability to get records and check on what they were doing under the curtain, behind the curtain and under the covers. And we used that to make sure that we kept the toll rates down. And we were very successful on doing that. In fact, Jesse and I worked in Olympia this year and capped the tolls on the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, so you won't see another toll increase. Jesse was the prime sponsor of the bill that finally got passed and approved, so congratulations, Jesse, and thank you for that. So when I filed for the Pierce County County Council race, about, I'm going to say 20 or 25 people called me, came up to me. 15 or 20 of those 25 people were from Kitsap County, not from Pierce County, and said, Randy, we didn't know that you were actually going to run for the county, for the state office, and we've had a problem in Kitsap County, and we're hoping that you can help. And I was aware of Michelle, and I was aware of her voting record, when I said, well, let me look into it, I was given a copy of the ethics complaint, and it was 100% on target, and I was shocked and said, fine, I'll switch office positions and turned and filed for the position 2 of the 26th district at the very last minute of the very last day. So it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction for me. It was a lot of soul searching. And it was because of the ethics more than anything else. You can put up with a rhino sitting in a red seat voting Democrat for a while, but when it starts becoming illegal and unethical, that's the point where I say, I got to step in and see what I can do. And I did. So right away, of course, I was the bad guy for eating another Republican, taking on another Republican, fighting another Republican. But I'm very happy I did it. I'm very thankful that I have a ton of people helping me. The last thing I did in Pierce County, or in the school district down in where I live, they had sponsored the school that wanted to do a $220 million bond. Now, the last bond the school district passed was in '03. It was for $45 million. After that, they tried a $50 million, which failed. They tried a $60 million, that failed. They tried a $70 million, that failed. And so their brilliant idea this last year was, we're going to $220 million. What? I'm serious. That was their plan. And they thought that the people would actually approve a $220 million bond. So I had a better way, and I challenged the school district. I ran the campaign against the bond. And I want to piggyback on what some of my colleagues have said here tonight. You guys are unique because you're sitting here tonight just shining like great Republicans. And I got to tell you, there's thousands of you in their homes tonight, sitting there just like you, but they're scared to death to stick their head out the door and say, hey, here, I'm here, I'm a Republican. And it's systemic. After I started the bond process, Jesse mentioned social media. Oh my God. I don't know, anybody see the social media stuff that came up? Oh my God, I was the worst guy in the entire world. I was the only guy that was against the bond. I spent $3,500 to defeat the bond. The bond proponents spent $165,000 trying to get the bond passed. They spent $10,000 on t-shirts. $10,000 on t-shirts. So they were shocked and amazed that their bond didn't pass. And my better way was, where everyone's talking about how do we fund schools now, and there is an easier way to do that. You don't do a bond. A bond is a 20-year bond. You're paying for it for, in this case, you're paying for it for 23 years. The interest on that bond was $132 million that went out the window. It didn't go into any schools. We paid $132 million over 20 years that didn't do one thing for our school district except tie that debt around the kids in our school district until 2041. So every time I was at a school district meeting or something, everyone would say, it's for the children, it's for the children. It is for the children, but we don't need to tie a $132 million debt around the neck of our children and make them pay for it because we think we know better. So, and I'm not afraid to step up. Jesse says the same thing. Jesse and I are kind of come from the same cloth. People get angry when you have the facts and the figures and you throw them on the table just as a starting point. Okay, so here's this. They don't have a retort, so the only thing they can do is call you names. I was knocking on a door the other day, and this nice little old lady opened the door, and she looked at me and she goes, "You don't look like Snidely Whiplash." So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up at that point. I've got a real challenge in seat 2. Michelle has $140,000 in her campaign war chest. Do you know how much money came from the 26th district? $4,500. I said she has $140,000 and only $4,500 have come from the people in this district. 371 people have contributed to her campaign. You know how many people in the 26th district actually gave her money? 28. 28. You can't tell me that Michelle is representing the people of this district when people don't support her and she doesn't support this district. So I will be here. 38 years I've been in the 26th district, 38 years with my feet on the ground, doing things like developing parks and trails and airports and the rest of the stuff that I'm doing in the sidelines. How about this? I just put in our subdivision, they've been working for 5 years to get locking mailboxes because the mail keeps getting stolen. I went to the homeowners meeting in December, and by January, the end of January, we were under construction putting new locking mailboxes in our neighborhood. That's a little tiny thing, but it's really important to the 75 people that live in my neighborhood. But 5 years they tried to do it. I stepped in 1 month, got it done. That's the kind of stuff I can do, and that's the kind of stuff that I want to do in Olympia. With Jesse and Marty and I down there, the 3 horsemen, we're going to get it done for you. And again, I thank you for coming tonight. Thank you. Did you see us, the 3 of us walking out there like this?
Thank you, Randy Boss. And by the way, it is loud now, isn't it? I owe Randy a huge apology. You know, I slept all day so I wouldn't make a mistake. And what do? Right? I call him Randy Box. How many picked that up? Yeah, and you picked it up because I think I spelled it that way on the ballots you have. So and nobody noticed and pointed it out. You're a bunch of room of proofreaders. I didn't see that.
What should it be?
It's Boss, B-O-S-S.
That's what I thought.
So if you'll just, although we'll know, but it's Randy Boss, and we appreciate that he's taken the time to come here and talk to us. And I can, again, mock myself for doing something terribly silly. Now, speaking of friends, there's actually somebody here who isn't from Gig Harbor that's going to speak tonight. And I think I can call her my friend. Now, she doesn't come from Kingston. She knows about Kingston. And she knows about North Kitsap. I've been in her office several times. She's been a great mayor, I think, overall for Poulsbo, a great economic boom, a good spokesman. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Becky Harris.
On the back table, I have some flyers if you want to pick them up on your way out the door. Where to start? I am a local girl, meaning I was actually born in Seattle, raised in Kent, Washington. My dad is an Episcopal deacon. He's a Goldwater Republican, still alive. He's 95, World War II vet. My mom passed away several years ago. She went to the Cornish School and was a member of the Socialist Workers' Party. Goldwater Republican, social work, a communist. Okay, I mean seriously, she used to sing the Russian national, Soviet national anthem in the kitchen while she was cooking. I am not kidding. So whenever election cycles came around, I ran for cover. I mean, it was like, holy smokes. I mean, they'd argue and argue and argue and argue. And so I think it's probably pretty natural that I'm a political moderate, which I know you guys are very proud conservatives in this room. But I call myself a moderate because I'm a very fiscally conservative person. I believe in watching numbers and money very carefully because I believe that government has the ultimate responsibility when they take tax dollars from all of us, that they do the right thing with it. Okay, so I'm very conservative fiscally, but I call myself socially responsible. Now, I don't know if this is conservative or liberal, or I think it's just because I'm a person of faith, which means that I believe that you need to look out for your neighbor. And some of our neighbors are addicted to heroin, are taking meth, are abused as children, and end up on our streets. And I think that we have an obligation as a society to address that. I say a hand up, not a hand out. In other words, helping them get into treatment and helping people. That's what I think we have an obligation to do. So those are pretty blue principles normally. Those are associated with the Democrats. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I believe in. I think we have an obligation to do both. So, a little bit about me. Graduated from University of Washington in 1979 with a degree in economics. Put myself through school, most of it. My dad helped me out at the beginning, and then he cut my money off because I had a terrible fight with him about something I can't remember. But anyway, put myself through school and have been a career woman all my life. Even when my kids were young, I worked. I was self-employed. I had 23 small business clients when my kids were little. And I was what I call a contract CFO. I'd go into small business and say, what's that? What do you got going there? Your margins are wrong. This isn't looking right. Your taxes, you can't do that. And I did that for a living. I jumped from business to business to business. It was a great experience. I learned a lot. After my kids got a little bigger, I went back into the workforce and I was a commuter. I went to Seattle. And I also did what is an equivalent of a master's degree in computer science. I was a SQL programmer. I code. I'm a dork, okay? I'm a geek. Lots of coding, IT. And I worked at that for about 6 years. And then all heck broke loose. Our family farm in Paulsboro was annexed into the city of Paulsboro. We were in the county, and they took our farm in. We were kidnapped, didn't want to go. And within about 6 months, our farm was surrounded by survey tape. And I met engineers walking across our pasture, marking trees and marking fence posts, really. And I said, what are you doing on my land, What are you doing here? Well, you gotta understand, this is gonna, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this. I had the county in our driveway telling us that we would be taxed out of our property. We would never we could never afford to keep it. Not in the city. And I thought, oh brother, this isn't happening, right? So I watched and I started to do my homework. And then I got this blue slip in the mail. Said there's going to be a community meeting. Community meeting. This was in August 2006. So I took the blue slip down to the city of Paulsboro and I said, what's this mean? What is this? And they said, well, let me show you 120 houses surrounding our 10-acre farm. And I looked at it and I went, whoa, what's going on? I mean, who's going to pay for the schools? Who's going to pay for the roads? How's this going to work? How's the sewer, water? What? And they said, oh, wait a second, let me show you. And they took out this big map. And actually, it was a piece of butcher paper. It was this long piece of paper. And they had taped the developments on this map for what we now call the Knoll Road Corridor. It's 1,500 houses headed towards this little tiny street. And I looked at it, and I said, well, so how are you going to do this? How are you going to pay for the schools, the water, the roads? How's this all going to work? And they said, well, they started to fumble. Turns out the city of Paulsboro hadn't increased their impact fees. They had no plan. They had no plan. Okay? They had a comprehensive plan, but they hadn't updated it with any of the current information. They had no facilities plans. They had no infrastructure plans. They had no clue what they were doing. So I took the big map and I said, can I use this map? Can I take this map? Well, it's the only one we have, the woman said, the planner. And I said, well, look, I'll give you my driver's license, okay? Can I just borrow it? I just want to make a copy of it. And she said, okay, all right, fine. So I gave her my driver's license and I went up to Sound Reprographics. And as luck would have it, clear back in 2006, they had a gigantic scanner. And they took that map and they scanned it in and they created a PDF file. Does everybody know what a PDF file is? Okay, PDF file. They created a PDF file. And they gave it to me on file, and they made a couple copies of it for me. And I went home, took the map back to the city and went home. And my husband's standing at the kitchen counter. I'm showing him all this. And he said, oh my God, what are we gonna do, oh my God. And I said, well, you know, honey, I think I know what we're gonna do. We're gonna put a full page ad in the North Kitsap Herald, and we're gonna tell everybody this is going on. And that's what we did. It cost $2,700. Put a full page ad in the newspaper and started going to the community meetings, and I passed the building moratorium. Stopped it. Stopped it cold. And then there was the grim realization that I'd really hurt somebody. I'd really hurt one of my neighbors. A woman up at the street, had 20 acres, was going to develop her property. She wanted to retire. She was in her late 70s. She had nothing else. Nothing else. Small Social Security check. That was it. I took her retirement with her. And I thought, oh my God, I need to know more before I do anything like this again. Because I really hurt her. I really hurt her. Now, on the end of the story, after a whole bunch of other things, she sold her property for a lot of money, and it is now the Mountaineer subdivision. So she's okay. But I didn't know what I was doing. So I went to work, homework. I read everything I could get my hands on. Growth management, yep, I know what that is. You know, infrastructure planning, facilities planning, yep, I know what those are. Ran for council, elected to city council. Ran for mayor, elected to mayor. I'm on my 9th year as mayor. I went from somebody in a pasture to mayor in 11 years. Okay, well I actually did it 40 years, but now it's been 11 years. And it's a lot of work being a mayor. Now why am I running for the state legislature? How's my time doing? Okay? Okay. Miss Appleton, and actually the entire 23rd delegation, all three of them, refused to give up their emails. Now we in local government are required, you spoke about that when you worked on the Narrows Bridge, Randy, you talked about that. Mayor Mathis, good to see you. We're required to do everything in public. We have the Open Public Meetings Act, which says we have to notice for quorum, we have to do everything in open meetings with a few exclusions. And we're required to give up all public documents, including our emails. You know, I hadn't even become mayor. I just gotten elected. And somebody asked for every one of my emails for 2 years. It took me 6 months to comply with the records request. Sherry Appleton refuses to give up her emails. There is no transparency in government if you can't read what they're writing. And they refuse to even to this day. There's supposed to be a committee of some sort, some kind of legislative group working with the lawsuit. Last I heard, it hasn't even been formed. They're stonewalling it. And you know what? That's not right. The first thing I did when I became mayor of the city of Paulsbo, I literally took the door off my office. I unscrewed the bolts and carried the door back to the IT. I did, I took it off. It really annoyed my staff. It was like, oh my God, the door's gone. But yeah, that's what made me run. I have a lot of other things that I want to accomplish besides that. But that can't stand. We cannot have our state government not being transparent about their actions. And you know, frankly, they need to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act too. Of course, that's going to make Mary Hill with their caucusing structures. But they need to comply with that too. And oh, by the way, did you know the state of Washington exempted themselves from the Growth Management Act? That's why we have congestion on our state highways. because they don't have concurrency requirements. If our roads and local government get congested, and they go to what's called a failing level of service, we have to fix it, else we can't issue any more building permits. The state exempted themselves. That kind of stuff's got to stop, guys. I mean, they got to play with the same rules that we in local government play with every day. Every day. And if they are unwilling to do it, they shouldn't be in office. Period. I see people trying to give me the hooks. I want to say thank you to what I call the South End rebels here. These group of people and I worked together when we were fighting the fast ferries. And I used to drive down to Gig Harbor and eat Chinese, not Gig Harbor, excuse me, Port Orchard, and have Chinese food as we plotted. I'm sorry guys, we lost that one. But you know when that ferry was breaking, over and over and over again, I was just really glad they didn't hurt somebody. You know, they did have a fire on the boat. But we were right, but the people didn't agree with us. So now my job, because I'm still on Kitsap Transit, is to make the boats work, and I'm trying really hard to do that. But anyway, I'm going to stick around. If anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer it.
We have to show off the t-shirt, right? And something special, because I think Becky hasn't visited us for a couple of years now. Have you? And so we have this blingy little pin that should she get elected to the legislature, that could be one of her first bills. Okay, win. So we have our 4 guests. Jesse Young, give him a round. Stand up, Jesse. Morning, Clinton. Randy Boss, OSS. And Becky Erickson. Thank you. Now all of you have a slip, a little straw poll. Talks about endorsement. No, not going to endorse at all. Don't know enough. Will endorse and will endorse strongly. And so now you have a chance to ask each of them individually, and no, you can't have more ballots, right? So no stuffing the box. We're conservatives, we only vote once.
That's right.
And that's not fair, I agree. And so ask them questions. Ask them the tough questions, get to know them, this is your opportunity. And then before you leave, it's aptly called the suggestion box. So you just drop your little suggestion in that box. We'll tally them up and communicate them as soon as we can. Thank you very much for being here. Enjoy your visit and have a safe drive home.